welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're jumping right into something pretty crucial for a lot of people, applying for a U.S. visa.
Yeah, it's a big one.
We've got some really interesting material here, focusing specifically on that key moment, the visa interview itself.
Exactly. We've been looking at a transcript from a YouTube channel, Podcast Speak English. It's their episode 10, Powerful Podcasts for English Fluency.
Right.
Now, okay, it's designed for English learners, but the actual interview simulation and the advice around it, it's gold for anyone going through the visa process.
Yeah.
Seriously good stuff.
Totally agree. So our mission today is basically to pull out all that essential advice about the U.S. visa interview from this source. We want to give you a much clearer idea of what you might expect and how you can prepare, regardless of why you might have originally watched that video. Okay, so let's start with a really basic question they bring up. What even is a visa?
Right. Good place to start. Simply put, it's like an official stamp or maybe a document right there in your passport. It's what gives you the legal okay to travel to a country.
And definitely not, as the source points out, your credit card.
No, definitely not. Won't get you very far at immigration.
So the specific visa type they focus on is the B2 visa. What's that one all about?
The B2, that's mainly your tourist visa. So think vacations, short visits, just traveling around the U.S. That's generally the B2 category.
Okay.
Of course, there are tons of different visa types out there.
Yeah, and the source does briefly touch on others, just for context, like the F1 for students or the J1 for exchange visitors. Those let you stay longer for specific reasons, right? Not just tourism like the B2.
Exactly. Different purpose, different visa.
Right, so the real meat of this material is this simulated interview. Let's get into that.
Yeah, it's a dialogue. You've got a visa officer and an applicant. And interestingly, the original podcast hosts pointed out the applicant has an accent.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, and they framed it as good practice for understanding different speakers, which, let's face it, is pretty realistic for an actual interview setting.
Absolutely. Good point. So how does the interview kick off? What's the first question?
The officer asks, pretty directly, "Where's your final destination, and what's the purpose of your trip to United States?" Standard opener.
Okay, and the applicant?
They replied they were going to visit their brother in Minneapolis, said the brother just had a baby.
Ah, okay. Nice specific reason. What did the original host say about answering that kind of question? Any advice there?
Yeah, they really emphasized being specific. So name the state, name the city if you can, just like the applicant did, and be really clear about the why. Tourism, family, business, no vague answers.
Right. Ambiguity is probably not your friend in this situation.
Definitely not.
Okay, so clarity first. Then the interview moves to how long they plan to stay.
Yep. The officer asks, "And how long do you plan to remain in the United States?"
And the applicant's response.
Said approximately 3 weeks. And they also mentioned having a return ticket already booked for March 26th, which is helpful.
Seems straightforward. Why did the source make a point about this part?
Well, it's about consistency. The key thing they stressed is that your answer here absolutely has to line up with what you put on your actual visa application form.
Ah, okay, so no discrepancies.
Exactly. Any difference there could, raise a red flag for the officer. They'll notice.
Consistency is key.
What?
Okay, next up, money. The officer asks, and who's sponsoring your trip?
And the applicant answered that their brother was sponsoring. They also mentioned having an invitation letter from him.
Okay, let's unpack sponsoring. The source had a language takeaway on this, right? What does it mean here?
Yeah, in the visa context, sponsoring basically means someone else is taking financial responsibility for you during your visit. They're saying, I'll cover their costs, make sure they have enough money.
Right.
The source even gave a little example, one of the hosts being sponsored by their parents for a trip when they were like 16.
Oh, relatable. And the invitation letter, what's the deal with that?
So the invitation letter is usually a formal letter, could be from family, a friend, maybe even a business, inviting you to come visit their country. It's pretty important documentation because it backs up your reason for the trip.
Provides context. Makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so destination, purpose, duration, sponsor, check. Now we get to what the source calls maybe the most important question. Your ties to your home country.
Oh, yeah. This is the big one. The officer asks, all right, tell me about the ties you have to your home country.
And the applicant had a fairly detailed answer, didn't they? What did they list?
They did. They mentioned owning a house, leaving their dog with neighbors, which is a nice detail, owning a car, and having a job. And an engineer specifically with only 3 weeks of vacation time.
Okay, quite a few things there. Why is this question considered so critical?
because this is all about proving you're going to go back home. The officer needs to feel confident that you won't just stay in the U.S. illegally. They're looking for solid proof that you have strong reasons to return.
Right. The return ticket isn't always enough on its own.
Not at all. They want to see commitment back home.
And the language takeaway, again, it defined ties pretty clearly.
It did. It basically described ties as all the things, connections, commitments that keep you attached, rooted in your home country, things that pull you back. They even used a metaphor like a rope tying you home.
That's a good visual.
Yeah, and examples they gave were things like owning property, having close family spouse, kids' bank accounts, a steady job. You know, the stronger these ties seem, the better your chances look.
Right. The source had some example sentences too, right, for using the word ties.
Yeah, a few useful ones like, I sold my house and closed my bank account. I don't have any more ties to my home country. That shows the lack of ties.
Okay.
Another was about family. Alvin enjoyed being single. He wasn't ready for the ties of family life. And one showing a bigger picture. Diplomatic relations have improved and the ties between the two countries are stronger. So it really shows how the word connects things.
Those are helpful examples. So putting it all together, how does the source say applicants should actually show these ties during the interview?
Preparation is key. The advice is bring documents. Bank statements, maybe mortgage papers, marriage certificates, birth certificates for kids, letters from your employer confirming your job and vacation time.
Wow, okay. Like a whole file.
Exactly. They strongly suggest having a really comprehensive file ready to go. Even if the officer doesn't ask for every single piece of paper, it's way better to have it and not need it than the other way around.
Definitely sounds like solid advice.
Ah.
Okay, moving on. The next question in the simulation was about money again, but from a different angle.
Right. The officer asks, and what evidence do you have that you are financially independent?
And the applicant's response.
They mentioned owning the house again and said they had a bank statement showing investments and their account balance.
Okay. And the definition of financially independent from the source.
It means having enough money to support yourself. Basically, you don't need financial help from anyone else for this trip. It shows you can cover your own expenses, which, again, suggests you're less likely to, say, work illegally or overstay because you ran out of cash. You can handle yourself financially.
Makes sense. The applicant also brought up assets. How did the source explain that term?
Assets are basically valuable things you own back in your home country, and the source directly links these to your ties.
Ah, okay. More proof
Yeah.
you have things to go back to.
Exactly. Examples given were, a house, a car, stocks, investments, tangible things that have value and tie you to your home.
Gotcha. And did they have example sentences for assets too?
They did. One was kind of the negative. So you have no house, no car, no investments, and no money at all. In fact, you have no assets.
Okay, clear lack of assets there.
And another, more from a business angle. The total value of the company's assets is more than $1 billion. Both show it's about things with financial worth.
Okay, so the interview covers all these serious points, ties, finances, but then it takes a really weird turn at the end, right?
Yeah, it gets unexpected. The officer first says, "I'm sorry, sir, we cannot grant you a B2 visa at this time," which sounds like bad news.
Oh, boy.
But then immediately follows up with, "Instead, you are granted a resident visa. Congratulations, you are the millionth person to apply for a visa. You win."
Wait, what? A resident visa? Just like that?
Just like that. But before anyone gets too excited.
Yeah, I was going to say, the original hosts had a pretty big caveat about this, didn't they?
Oh, absolutely. They put in a very clear, very humorous disclaimer saying this scenario would never, ever happen at a real consulate.
Okay, good. Because that sounded way too good to be true.
Totally. It really just highlights that, wishful thinking aside, success comes down to a solid, realistic application, not some random lottery win.
Right. A funny twist in their story, but definitely not something to bank on. Okay, before we wrap up the interview part, the source had a useful vocabulary review section.
It did, yeah. The English Pod audio review, it went back over those key terms we've been talking about.
Yep.
It's like sponsoring, invitation letter, ties, financially independent, assets. Also words like approximately, evidence, grant meaning to give or approve visa officer, resident permit, embassy, and application form.
That's actually really helpful, just listing them out like that. Reinforces the key concepts.
Yeah, it's a good way to make sure those terms stick.
Okay, so let's distill this. Based on our deep dive into this material, what are the absolute must-know takeaways for someone heading into a U.S. visa interview?
Okay, number one, Be super clear, super specific about where you're going and why. No fuzzy answers.
Got it.
Number two, make absolutely sure your planned length of stay matches what's on your application. Consistency, remember.
Right, consistency.
Number three, and this is probably the biggest, be ready, like really ready to demonstrate strong ties to home. Bring your documents, explain your situation clearly.
Proof you're coming back.
Exactly. And finally, number four, show you can support yourself financially during the trip. Have that evidence ready too.
It really does hammer home the need for serious preparation. Gather those documents, think through your answers. Even if they don't ask for everything, just being prepared must help with confidence, right?
Absolutely. Being organized and prepared can make a huge difference, not just in perception, but in easing your own nerves.
Yeah, I can imagine. So this leads to kind of a final thought for you listening. That whole millionth applicant win a resident visa thing was obviously fantasy,
Definitely fancy.
but it makes you think, what are the real million-dollar factors? What are the preparations or qualities that genuinely significantly boost your chances of getting that visa approved? It's worth thinking about that and maybe doing some more digging into what really makes a successful application stand out. Something to chew on after this deep dive.
Great point to end on. Thanks for tuning in.